I understand that my fight against these criminals won't undo the tragedy that occurred, but I feel it's necessary. After World War II, some Nazi leaders managed to escape to other countries. Despite the Anglo-German naval agreement, symbolizing our people's desire to never again go to war, many of these leaders were captured and tried. While the Nazis marched through Wiesenthal, their parents and millions of others were taken to concentration camps. I invite you to join us as we explore the brutal fate of Nazi leaders captured after World War II. On April 20, 1945, the U.S. Army seized Germany, marking a significant victory in the war's final days. The fall of Nuremberg represented a drastic shift in the war and became an important symbol of the Nazi regime's downfall. This event hastened the end of the war and paved the way for the Nuremberg trials, which aimed to prosecute Nazi war criminals. Nuremberg held a special status for the Nazis. Adolf Hitler considered the city the most German of all and chose it to host various events and propaganda rallies. It was in Nuremberg, in 1935, that the Nuremberg Laws were passed, depriving Jews of their German citizenship and laying the groundwork for the Holocaust. The capture of Nuremberg by the U.S. Army was not only a military victory, but also a milestone in justice against the horrors committed by the Nazis. The Nuremberg trials were a historic event, where the top Nazi leaders faced justice for their crimes. These trials brought to light the horrific details of the atrocities committed and represented a global effort to hold those who had perpetrated so much pain and suffering accountable. The history of these trials is a powerful reminder of the lasting impact of justice and the importance of never forgetting the horrors of the past to prevent them from recurring in the future. The capture of Nuremberg by the Allies was a momentous event of strategic and symbolic importance during World War II. This city was crucial for the trials that would later take place there, becoming a focal point for the post-war era. Between November 20, 1945, and October 1, 1946, the Nuremberg trials prosecuted prominent Nazi war criminals. These trials were instrumental in establishing the notion of individual responsibility for war crimes and served as a model for future international criminal courts. The impact of these trials was immense. 22 senior Nazi officials were charged with war crimes, crimes against humanity, and conspiracy to commit these crimes. Among them, 12 were sentenced to death, 3 were acquitted, and the remainder received prison terms of varying lengths. These verdicts not only punished the guilty, but also served as a stark warning that such atrocities would not go unpunished. The capture of Nuremberg marked a turning point in the war. It was the first clear sign that the Nazi dictatorship was crumbling. The trials that followed in Nuremberg reminded the world of the horrors committed during the conflict and helped establish the foundations of international law regarding war crimes and crimes against humanity. The events surrounding the capture and trials of Nuremberg continue to shape our view of responsibility and justice. They remind us of the constant need for vigilance against the forces of oppression and hatred. The legacy of these trials is a powerful testament to the global commitment to justice and humanity, a beacon that continues to illuminate the path against the repetition of past mistakes. In our picture, we see a Nazi leader bound to a wooden contraption, appearing to be on the brink of execution. The expression on his face says it all, and even without knowing exactly what will happen, it's clear that it won't be a moment of laughter for this officer. Unraveling the Odessa network and escape routes, many members of the Nazi Party elite realized they would need to vanish once Germany was defeated in World War II. As the horrors committed by the Nazis became evident to the world, especially those who oversaw the creation of extermination camps during the Holocaust, thousands of SS members assumed new identities. They secretly fled to South America, seamlessly blending into new lives with the help of friendly governments and even the Catholic Church. While some managed to evade capture, others were located and prosecuted. The codename Odessa was coined in 1946 to refer to the Nazi underground escape plans, as well as any subsequent agreements formulated by a group of SS officers at the end of World War II to allow hidden escape routes. The idea of a true Odessa group became popularized through fictional spy books and movies. The escape avenues, now known as Ratlins, allowed SS members to flee to Argentina or the Middle East using forged passports. It was a known objective of certain groups within the organization to ensure that these war criminals could vanish without a trace. This secretive and well-organized network allowed many guilty parties to escape justice. The discovery and dismantling of these ratlins were arduous and perilous tasks, involving agents willing to risk everything to bring the guilty to justice. The story of these fugitives and those who hunted them is full of suspense and emotion, reflecting the long arm of justice that, though it may take time, always finds its target. While the exact number of Nazis and war criminals who managed to escape from Germany and Europe remains unknown, the existence of an organization called Odessa is widely contested by experts. In fact, the term Odessa was coined by Americans and encompasses a variety of escape arrangements, both real and hypothetical, as well as real and imaginary groups. This term has generated and continues to generate much confusion. When Juan Perón came to power in Argentina in 1946, around 300 Nazis managed to travel there with his help. This massive movement of Nazi war criminals to South America is one of the darkest and most controversial chapters of the post-war period. Another intriguing aspect of this period was Operation Paperclip. As World War II drew to a close, American and British institutions collaborated to scour occupied Germany for military research, scientific, and technological development. Organizations like the Combined Intelligence Objectives Subcommittee followed suit, confiscating war materials, papers, and interrogating scientists. A fascinating discovery during these operations was the Ozenberg List, a roster of scientists and engineers who worked for the Third Reich. This list was found hidden in a room at the University of Bonn and revealed significant names in Nazi science. Initially, the covert operation to capture these scientists was called Operation Overcast, but was later renamed Operation Paperclip. Operation Paperclip had a clear goal: to bring key Nazi scientists to the United States, leveraging their knowledge for American scientific and technological advancement. This controversial operation raised significant ethical questions, as many of these scientists had direct ties to Nazi atrocities. However, the technological and scientific race of the Cold War justified, in the view of many, the integration of these individuals into the American effort. These events are shrouded in suspense and mystery, showing how justice, politics, and science intertwined in unexpected and often disturbing ways in the post-war era. The stories of secret escapes, clandestine operations, and the relentless pursuit of justice still echo as vivid reminders of this tumultuous period in world history. Over 1,600 German scientists were sent to the U.S. to work during the Cold War. This initiative was managed by the newly created Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, whose mission was to prevent the Soviet Union from obtaining these valuable insights and, at the same time, utilize the knowledge of German scientists for the development of American rockets and other biological and chemical weapons. Although President Harry Truman formally approved the program, he prohibited the CIA from hiring active members or supporters of the Nazi regime. However, program administrators ignored this order, believing that German scientific intelligence was crucial for American post-war efforts. To this end, they removed or covered up evidence of potential war crimes from the files of the involved scientists. The denazification of Germany was a complex and crucial process after World War II. The Allies attempted to purge Nazi ideology from German and Austrian society by removing former Nazi party members and SS from positions of influence, dissolving or neutralizing Nazi organizations, and prosecuting known Nazis for war crimes during the Nuremberg trials in 1946. This effort was initiated and strengthened in August 1945 by the Potsdam Agreement. Initially, the U.S. Pentagon used the term denazification in 1943, intending to apply it exclusively to the German judicial system that would emerge after the war. However, the term took on a broader meaning, encompassing culture, the press, business, the judiciary, and politics. Additionally, there was a controversial role of the Vatican and the Red Cross in the escapes of Nazis. While some members of these organizations aided Nazi war criminals in escaping, many Nazis used escape routes, known as ratlins, to flee to South America and other regions with forged passports. These events are filled with suspense and emotion, reflecting the complex web of post-war policies and moralities. The capture of German scientists, the attempt to eradicate Nazism from society, and the secret escapes of war criminals are exciting and often disturbing chapters in history, showing how far some nations were willing to go to ensure technological and military supremacy in the new world emerging from the ashes of war. Many well-known Nazis managed to leave Europe after World War II and evade punishment for their crimes, regardless of who aided them and where they went. In 1948, 3 years after the war ended, a notorious Nazi war criminal escaped from a prison in Linz, Austria. This man, former SS Hauptsturmführer Franz Stangl, oversaw the extermination camps at Sobibor and Treblinka, where nearly 1 million Jews died under his orders. Stangl fled to Rome, passing through Graz, Murano, and Florence. In the Vatican, he was received by Austrian Bishop Alois Hudal, who provided him with false documents. With these documents, Stangl managed to escape to Syria, where his family eventually joined him. In 1951, the Stangl family moved to Brazil, where Franz Stangl spent years working at a Volkswagen factory near São Paulo. The man assembling automobiles was, in fact, the master of mass murder in concentration camps. Many escape routes, known as Eratlans, he led from Austria through the Alps to Murano or Bolzano in South Tyrol, and then on to Rome. From Rome, fugitives traveled to the Italian port city of Genoa. Franz Stangl was just one of thousands of Nazis and collaborators who, with the help of the Catholic Church, managed to flee Europe. While Stangl opted for a detour through Syria, most Nazis boarded ships bound directly for South America, primarily Argentina. Holocaust survivor and author Simon Wiesenthal dubbed Argentina the Cape of the Last Nazi Hope, as it was the last nation to declare war on Nazi Germany. The Ratlans consisted of various separate parts, functioning more like an organic alliance between many organizations that developed over time after World War II, rather than a fully organized system. The escape of so many war criminals was facilitated by a complex and well-coordinated network of accomplices, keeping alive the ghosts of a dark past and leaving justice to be fully served. The first major loophole in the escape of Nazi criminals from Europe arose, with about 90% of these individuals crossing the Alps towards Italy. The monastery route, as it was also known, became a crucial path for these Eratlans. Many war criminals spent years hidden in monasteries, gathering money to continue their flight abroad. During this period, some Nazis had close encounters with Jews traveling to Israel, their former victims. The International Committee of the Red Cross issued passports to Nazis who possessed letters from the Catholic Church verifying their identities. By 1951, approximately 120,000 passports were issued, facilitating the escape of many war criminals. Without the protection of the Catholic Church, figures like Franz Stangl and others would not have been able to escape so easily. These individuals were involved in the deliberate extermination of about 6 million Jews, as well as millions of Roma, Poles, and others deemed inferior by the Nazis. Many managed to evade the Allied forces and found refuge in various nations, where they remained free for years after the war. Simon Wiesenthal dedicated his life to locating and gathering evidence against Nazi war criminals, ensuring they faced justice. In 1947, he helped establish the Jewish Historical Documentation Center in Linz, Austria, where he and other researchers collected evidence for war crimes trials and helped refugees find missing relatives. In 1961, Wiesenthal founded the Documentation Center of the Association of Jewish Victims of the Nazi Regime in Vienna, continuing his tireless quest for justice. In 1960, he helped locate Adolf Eichmann in Buenos Aires, working closely with the Austrian Ministry of Justice to compile information on various war criminals. Wiesenthal also played a crucial role in the capture of Franz Stangl, the notorious supervisor of the Sobibor and Treblinka extermination camps. Stangl was found in Brazil and extradited to Germany, where he was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment in 1971. Wiesenthal's dedication and persistence were instrumental in ensuring that many Nazi war criminals faced the consequences of their actions. Simon Wiesenthal, a survivor of Nazi death camps, lived to recount the atrocities of the Holocaust and pursue those who evaded justice. His work serves as a warning to future generations, reminding us of the importance of not forgetting the horrors of the past. After the war, Wiesenthal focused on tracking down former Nazis who had infiltrated post-war politics. An alarming discovery was the presence of Nazis in the German Ministry of Justice, more than during the war itself. It seemed that many were shielding or turning a blind eye to war crimes, allowing them to assimilate into the country's legal system. The Rosenberg Project, an investigation, revealed that 77% of senior officials in the Ministry of Justice were Nazis. This sparked suspense and urgency, as if the shadows of the past were ever present. Wiesenthal and his colleagues faced dangers in their mission, but their determination to seek justice remained steadfast. With each new discovery, they edged closer to the goal, ensuring that crimes were not forgotten and that the guilty did not escape unpunished. Wiesenthal's work shows that the fight against injustice and oppression is ongoing. Even in the toughest situations, courage and determination can bring truth to light. His dedication is a testament to the power of memory and the ongoing need to combat hatred and intolerance. From 1933 to 1945, figures like Max Merton, who aided in the deportation of Jews from Greece, and the Arab Nazi prosecutor Edward Dreer, who advocated for the death penalty for minor offenders, were among the members of a dark group. In 1947, U.S. authorities brought 16 lawyers and jurists involved in the Nazi system to justice, seeking to hold them accountable for their actions. However, in 1949, in West Germany, the Federal Republic of Germany was established and only one prosecutor was tried. Many of those who had worked for the ministry in the years following World War II had prior experience as judges or lawyers in the Nazi regime. They entered the department offering legal counsel amid the country's reconstruction. Instead of exposing past injustices, this network of former Nazis formed an alliance, shielding each other from punishment and influencing the drafting of the country's laws. This resulted not only in new injustices, but also in a concealment of historical records that Nazi-era lawyers tried to cover up. Today, Germany is delving deeper into its tumultuous history, seeking to understand how Nazi authorities shaped the country's contemporary policies. This includes a reassessment of German homicide laws and the provision of rehabilitation programs for over 50,000 men convicted of crimes against homosexuals and imprisoned until 1969. These are heavy legacies left by Nazi families, which still resonate in today's society. Suspense and emotion are present as authorities confront the challenge of confronting the country's dark past and seeking a path to reconciliation and true justice. The names of Himmler, Göring, GTH, and Hoest continue to echo the atrocities of Nazi Germany. But what is it like to live with these surnames? Is it possible to overcome the horrendous crimes committed by one's ancestors? Catherine Himmler used writing as a way to confront the fact that Heinrich Himmler was part of her family. It's an enormous burden to have someone so close in the family, a constant presence. Himmler, the chief architect of the Holocaust, was the great-uncle of a young German. In an effort to add something positive to the Himmler name, she wrote a novel called The Himmler Brothers. She tried to separate herself from him and examine him objectively. She no longer wanted to feel ashamed of her family ties. Catherine observed that Nazi war criminals seemed to be trapped between two extremes. Many chose to completely distance themselves from their parents, to live their own lives and avoid being consumed by history. Others opted for loyalty and unconditional love, ignoring any unpleasant aspects. Catherine thought she had a good relationship with her father until she began to investigate the family's history. It was difficult for him to talk about it, and she only realized how difficult it was for him after understanding how difficult it was for her to accept her own grandmother's Nazi past. On the other hand, Tina Göring, the great-niece of Hitler's designated successor, Hermann Göring, felt compelled to take drastic measures to deal with her family's legacy. Both she and her brother opted for sterilization, even though they were just children at the time. They felt an immense weight on their shoulders and tried to face it as best they could. The journey of these individuals is filled with emotion and suspense as they try to reconcile themselves with a legacy tainted by evil and find a way to move forward despite the shadows of the past. The relationship between Nazi Germany and the Arab world is an underexplored story, full of nuances ranging from indifference to resistance, collaboration, and emulation. Nazis found allies in various parts of the Arab world, using them to further their own political ambitions. These alliances were built on the foundation of mutual hostility against common enemies like the United Kingdom, the Third French Republic, communism, and Zionism. Nazi anti-Semitism and hatred against the UK and France were points of convergence, praised by several Arab and Muslim leaders, including the exiled Palestinian leader and Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Amin al-Husseini. Despite al-Husseini's efforts to gain German support for Arab independence, Hitler refused, stating he wanted nothing from the Arabs. Nazi Germany hesitated to engage in conflicts with the Italian Empire or Vichy France's colonies. However, Nazis dispatched officers and military supplies to Middle Eastern forces fighting alongside Axis states in the theater of World War II. This collaboration creates an atmosphere of suspense, revealing the backstage of a dark alliance amid the chaos of war. The history of propaganda campaigns in the Arab world dates back to the days of fascist Italy and Nazi Germany. These campaigns left a profound mark on the next generation of thinkers and political activists. During World War II, a complex saga of looting and art recovery unfolded. Books, ceramics, and religious treasures were taken from private collections of Jewish families. Hitler's dream of erecting a museum in his hometown, Linz, dedicated to his legacy, triggered a frantic search for valuable art, led by the SS and the Nazi army. These massive loots left a legacy of injustice that persists to this day. The monument men, tasked with protecting and recovering the stolen works, faced a monumental challenge. Even decades later, determining the true owners of the stolen artworks remains a complex task. Moreover, the Nazi ideology left a dark shadow that extends to the present day, fueling neo-Nazi movements. These groups seek to revive the ideals of Nazism, promoting hatred and racial supremacy. Their activities often target racial and ethnic minorities, propagating anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and intolerance. The specter of neo-Nazism still looms over the world, representing a continuous challenge for modern society. Neo-Nazism is a looming presence spreading across various nations, feeding on toxic elements like anti-Semitism, ultranationalism, racism, and xenophobia. This nefarious ideology, at its core, seeks to revive the worst aspects of Nazism, promoting hatred against minorities and fueling a Fourth Reich, even more radical. Holocaust denial is a common practice among neo-Nazis, who venerate figures like Adolf Hitler and display Nazi symbols as a form of worship of the dark past. In many countries, laws have been established to curb the advance of this movement, prohibiting the expression of pro-Nazi and discriminatory ideas. To better understand this phenomenon, it is crucial to examine the psychology behind Nazi ideas. The Nazis propagated the false belief that Jews were an inferior race, fueling a racial anti-Semitism that underpinned their distorted worldview. This racist ideology, rooted in prejudice and hatred, was propagated by figures like Hitler, whose book Mein Kampf served as a manifesto for this nefarious ideology. Nazi racism, although based on common preconceived notions in Europe and North America, took on grotesque and cruel proportions, leading to persecutions, massacres, and genocides that deeply marked history. Understanding the workings of this ideology is essential to combat it and prevent its shadows from spreading again over the world. Once in power in Germany, the Nazis shaped all governmental policies based on cruel and inhumane principles. Hitler's views on race, widely condemned as erroneous and malignant, fueled an intolerance that resulted in the persecution and mass murder of millions of people, including 6 million Jews. The trial of Adolf Eichen on May 23, 1960, marked a pivotal moment. Israeli Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion announced to the world that the Nazi war criminal would stand trial in Israel. Eichen, a leader of the SS responsible for executing Hitler's so-called final solution, she was located by Israeli spies in Argentina, where he had taken refuge. The Vanoni Conference in January 1942 was a grim milestone. There, Eichen met with top Nazi leaders to plan the destruction of Europe's Jewish population. His chilling effectiveness in overseeing the extermination camps resulted in the deaths of millions of Jews, either through gas chambers or forced labor until death. Argentina, celebrating its 150th anniversary of independence, became the backdrop for a covert operation. Mossad agents, seizing the festive moment, abducted Eichen in broad daylight. 3 days later, Prime Minister Benin announced that Eichen was in custody in Israel, thus ending decades-long pursuit of justice. Argentina's attempts to repatriate Eichmann were thwarted by Israel's steadfast stance, insisting on conducting a trial for his international war crimes. On April 11, 1961, Eichmann's trial began in Jerusalem, marking a historic milestone as the first televised trial. Facing 15 charges, including brutal crimes against humanity and Jews, Eichmann attempted to justify his actions by claiming he was merely following orders. However, the courts did not accept his excuses and found him guilty on all charges on December 15. The sentence came on May 31, 1962, death by hanging near Tel Aviv. Following the execution, his body was cremated and his ashes scattered at sea, closing a dark chapter in history. Yet, even as years pass, the resurgence of Nazi ideologies continues to haunt, showing that the scars of the past have not been fully healed. The shadows of the past continue to loom over the present, and even after Eichmann's execution, the legacy of the Nazis remains alive. His condemnation was but a chapter in the saga of justice amid the darkness of the Holocaust. While Eichmann's ashes were carried by the wind over the waters of the sea, remnants of his ideology still echoed in some minds. Neo-Nazi movements, though suppressed, were not entirely eradicated, and the specter of racial hatred continued to haunt many communities. But even in the face of this persistence, there were those who rose against the darkness of prejudice and hatred. The voices of those advocating tolerance and equality grew louder, challenging the grim legacy of Nazism. History, as painful as it may be, serves as a constant reminder of the dangers of extremism and intolerance. And while the past may cast its shadow over the present, it is the light of hope and compassion that guides the way toward a better future. As Eichmann's ashes dispersed through the air, a sense of relief spread among those seeking justice for the victims of the Holocaust. However, this victory was not the end of the battle against the resurgence of Nazism. While some celebrated the court's verdict, others lurked in the shadows, fueling hatred and plotting the resurrection of an ideology that had brought so much destruction to the world. In the darkest corners of society, neo-Nazis continued to organize, nurturing the flame of prejudice and violence. Meanwhile, in communities around the world, voices of resistance and hope emerged. People from all backgrounds united in a message of love and inclusion, challenging the remnants of the dark past. The battle against neo-Nazism was an ongoing struggle, a fight for the soul of humanity. And while the scars of the Holocaust still hurt, they also served as a powerful reminder of the need to remain vigilant against hatred and intolerance, today and always. As Eichmann's trial echoed through history, the voices of those clamoring for justice grew even louder. However, in the darkest corners of society, whispers of Nazi resurgence persisted, like shadows lurking in the darkness. Despite Eichmann's execution, hatred did not die. Neo-Nazis continued to secretly organize, feeding off a dark past and seeking to spread their venomous ideology. Meanwhile, in communities around the world, resistance strengthened. People from all backgrounds united in a message of love and tolerance, challenging the hatred attempting to infiltrate minds and hearts. The fight against neo-Nazism was a battle for the soul of humanity, a battle that knew no boundaries. As the world moved forward, memories of the Holocaust remained as a painful reminder of humanity's terrible capacity to inflict suffering upon its own kind. And so, history continued, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance between light and darkness. As history continues to teach us its invaluable lessons, it's crucial that we remain vigilant against any resurgence of harmful ideologies. To conclude this exciting journey, I invite you to join us in the fight against neo-Nazism and all forms of hatred. Firstly, I'd like to ask you to share this inspiring story with your friends and family. By spreading awareness about the dangers of neo-Nazism, we're building a united and resilient community against prejudice and intolerance. Share this text on your social media. Invite others to read and reflect on the importance of combating hatred wherever it may arise. Additionally, I invite you to subscribe to our channel of War Stories and Moments. There, you'll find a collection of engaging narratives, taking us on thrilling journeys through history's most significant events. By subscribing, you'll gain access to exclusive content that will keep you informed and inspired about the crucial moments that shape the world we live in. By liking and subscribing to the channel, you'll be joining a community dedicated to education, reflection, and positive action. Together, we can make a difference and build a fairer and more inclusive future for all. Thank you for your dedication and commitment. Together, we can create a world where love and compassion triumph over hatred and intolerance. Let's continue this journey together, side by side, towards a brighter and more hopeful future.